Well, the Tories were spraying money around today. The closest advisors to Boris Johnson think they've probably located what they think is the sort of magical elixir of British politics at the moment. You go hard on social conservatism. I suspect we'll hear a bit more of that from the Home Secretary Priti Patel tomorrow. But when it comes to economics, you move a bit closer to the sort of state-private sector balance that Tony Blair was looking at. Where does the money come from, though, that they were spraying around today? Not all the numbers, by the way, completely add up, but you get the direction of travel. Well, there was no clarity on where that money comes from, and the big announcement was on the living wage, which, in effect, quite a lot of it is spending other people's money. It's getting the private sector to cough up better wages, although there are implications as well for the public sector there. The really interesting moment when that was announced, though, was the reaction in the hall. The applause was perfunctory. A Labour conference would have been on its feet, very excited. I heard some grumbling individuals saying, well, we know who's going to pay for that. It's going to be the bosses. We've also, of course, had here the continuing saga of did the Prime Minister grope someone who was working for him years ago when he was a magazine editor. And in the last hour, we've had the party chairman talking about possible civil unrest if there were to be no Brexit. Welcome to the second day in the febrile world of the Conservative Party conference. Boris Johnson's team believe they can only win a general election if they broaden the debate from Brexit and get traditional Labour voters to trust them with the public sector. With the passion of a recent convert, Sajid Javid, long a self-proclaimed supporter of the smaller state, proclaimed the new creed, after first addressing his mother in the audience, in English and then in Punjabi.
Once again, we're living above the shop, but I'm so happy to make her proud. Mummy tu kadi sochya si aapa itthe honge. Daddy shop ain itthe hundi si. Sorry, that's between us. I forgot you were there. Just trying to make her comfortable.
And then the Chancellor of the party that brought you austerity boasted of the money he'd spray around.
These aren't just numbers on a spreadsheet. They are the beating heart of our country. And that's why public services are at the heart of this government's agenda.
The promise of billions for roads came after billions for hospitals announced yesterday. There was billions more for broadband promised today and cash for youth services, technical education and buses. Nearly 50 billions worth of promises made already at this conference, spread over at least 5 years and in some cases re-announced, but some still think it's more than a no-deal Brexit Britain could afford.
The truth is that unless we get Brexit right, all this stuff is froth, because we are going to take an economic hit which is going to make it unaffordable to deliver these policies.
The surprise announcement, another move onto Labour terrain, a hike in the living wage.
This ambitious plan will bring the national living wage up to £10.50, giving 4 million people a well-earned pay rise.
The age at which it has to be paid would come down from 25 to 21. The Prime Minister sat listening, hands on his own thighs. In yesterday's Sunday Times, he was accused of squeezing the thigh of a woman who was working for him when he was a magazine editor.
Prime Minister, it has been alleged that you touched the thigh of a woman at a lunch without her permission. Did you?
No, and I think what the public want to hear is about what we're doing to level up and unite the country.
Are you suggesting, you're saying it didn't happen, that she made it up?
I'm just saying what I've said, and I think that what the public want to hear is what we're doing for them.
What is the strategy?
What do you think it is?
Dominic Cummings, the Prime Minister's top advisor, mastermind behind the lurch back to spending promised by the Vote Leave campaign he ran. But for some here, it doesn't compensate for what they fear is a dangerous lurch to the right in the battle to get Brexit and win Brexit votes.
I don't want to sort of feel that this is no longer my party.
But right now, you think it is potentially on the cusp of taking a turn into a Trumpian politics?
I think it could go in that direction, and I want to do everything I can to resist the Conservative Party going in a Trumpian direction.
But an awful lot of signs are there, you think?
Well, I think there are signs, there are aspects of what has happened in recent weeks, which I do think moves us in that direction.
Thank you. Thank you.
The Shadow Chancellor, John McDonnell, dismissed Sajid Javid's living wage announcement as a pathetic attempt at catch-up. The CBI said there was a page missing from the speech. What happened to all the numbers if there was the serious rupture no-deal Brexit would bring?
Well, with just 31 days until Britain is due to leave the European Union, we have warnings from both the north and south of the country tonight. Two cities have been expressing strong concerns about how prepared they are for a no-deal departure from the EU. Some of those worries have come from Newcastle upon Tyne, and tonight this programme has seen a document which raises questions about the readiness of Portsmouth Harbour. Fatima Manji is in Westminster for us. Fatima.
Yes, Christian, in the last few hours we've learnt that there are serious concerns that the port of Portsmouth might become overwhelmed in the case of a no-deal Brexit. Here's the document we've been leaked. It's a letter sent to Robert Jenrick, the Secretary of State for Communities, who I believe you're about to interview, sent from the Hampshire Resilience Forum. And just to explain, this is police, fire, council officials. They get together to talk about emergency scenarios, and one of these exists in every part of the country. In this letter, they're saying, look, we understand the government's been occupied with planning in the port of Dover and in Kent, but we're worried that Hampshire's being overlooked, and that could lead to serious problems. According to the document, the Department for Transport's own modelling suggests that 75% of lorries that arrive in Portsmouth will not be ready. Now, where are all these lorries going to be held? Well, 2 car parks have been built in the area, which can host about 190 lorries. But the council officials have previously said they expect up to 2,000 lorries to arrive in Portsmouth every day. So where are they all going to be held? You can see why there are some serious concerns here. And I suppose this is just the latest in a series of things that we're learning that suggest that the country isn't quite as ready and quite as prepared for no deal as the government might have us believe.
And what are they saying in Newcastle?
Well, Newcastle City Council has published its worst-case scenario in the case of a no deal. What they're warning is we are seeing a full-scale emergency in the worst-case scenario, particularly concerned about delays to fuel distribution because that could have a knock-on effect on social care or bin collections and other council services. They're also worried about increase in food prices and utility prices because that will impact the most vulnerable people who are already struggling in the city.
Fatima Manji in Westminster. Well, Robert Jenrick, Secretary of State for Housing, Communities and Local Government, is with me now. And that letter from Hampshire warning about chaos in Portsmouth came to you, didn't it? So while you've got all these nice signs saying get Brexit done, the reality is chaos, worse than you predicted. You haven't replied to that letter yet, have you?
Well, I'm not sure exactly which letter that is, but I've been very engaged in the question of how local areas can improve their readiness for no deal. We've actually done a huge amount of work over the last 2 months. I've met with and spoken with most of the local resilience forum chairs. We've given additional funding to what you call sort of secondary ports.
And they're saying the latest projections say their readiness isn't ready. It's not good enough.
Well, look,
there's going to be roads full of lorries.
Well, I will obviously work very closely with the council. We have given them additional resources, both for infrastructure, for the local resilience forum, and for the council. Well, actually, we believe we believe we have given them sufficient resources. We've also looked at all the LRF's plans across the country and had them independently assured by a very experienced retired police assistant chief constable. And again, that came back with a positive message that, although of course there is more that could be done, I'm not underplaying that, but actually Brexit preparedness is much better than most people imagine across the country.
James Cleverly, your party chairman's warning of civil unrest if Brexit isn't delivered at the end of October. Do you believe there will be riots?
Well, I certainly hope not. I think there is a lot of anger in the country.
You think there's a serious risk of violence?
It's difficult I'm not going to speculate on whether there would be violence, but are people angry? I think they are. You know, 3.5 years have now passed since the referendum. 17.4 million people voted for it. Some people who voted in that referendum had never voted before in their lives, including in my own constituency in the North Midlands. Those people are sick to death of politicians failing.
You think they'll go out onto the streets?
Well, I think they might go out and protest. I think people will be very angry. But more
do you think people will protest?
As importantly, I think people will lose faith in democracy. And so the economic arguments are there.
Argument.
Well, it's actually linked.
I mean, do you think people will also go onto the streets if there's total chaos because of a no deal?
Well, firstly, I don't think there is going to be total chaos. Right. That's not our own...
You put it in mild disruption. Do you think people will protest? I mean, because all the warnings we heard before of unrest were to do with no deal. Now you're telling us there's going to be unrest if there is no deal.
No, look, we've spent the last 2 months significantly increasing the amount of preparedness that we have as a country for a no-deal exit. We've never said that that's our preferred scenario. You know that. The Prime Minister's trying to secure a deal. But we've said two things. Firstly, to get a good deal, we always needed to have that on the table to increase our leverage. That's clearly diminished now as a result of the games that people have played in Westminster. But if we don't manage to get a deal, or if we get one which can't get through the House of Commons, we've got to get Brexit done. We've got to move on with the life of the country, and that does mean leaving on the 31st of October without a deal.
I mean, even the Chancellor today on the radio didn't really sound like he knew exactly what the plan is. So I'm guessing you don't know precisely what the plan is to leave on the 31st.
Well, firstly, the Chancellor said that he wasn't going to lay all our cards out on the table.
Do you know what the plan is to get round the Benn Act?
I am not privy to all of the strategising that's going on within the government. However, I don't think that it's wise for us to set out all of our plans now. If our objective is to get a deal, then we need to have that leverage. And so, if, it would only be a foolish negotiator who lays out all their cards on the table.
He might tell his cabinet, and he clearly hasn't told you. So, I mean,
well, look,
do you think there is a plan?
This isn't about me. It's ensuring that we get the right outcome for the country.
You're one of the people running the country.
Well, I'm very
supposed to be holding the Prime Minister to account around that table.
But we have no intention of setting out every move that we may or may not make and speculating at this point. You know what we're trying to do. We're trying to get a deal. That's the easiest and most obvious route out of the EU. If not, the one thing the PM couldn't have been clearer on is that we are not going to extend Article 50. That's not an act that this government...
We don't know how.
Well, that's not an act
this
government's
going to do. What I'm asking you is, are you sure there is a plan? Or could this all be a big bluff? Because you don't know what the plan is. We don't know what the plan is. Are you sure there is a plan?
Look, we've been pretty clear in this situation. We're going to get a deal. If that isn't possible, we're not going to extend Article 50. If Article 50 were extended, it will not...
So you'll break the law?
It will not be the act... No, I didn't say that. I said it will not be the act
of... The law is
to
extend.
It will not be the act of this Prime Minister. We have no intention of doing that because, as the message of this party conference has been, get Brexit done and move on with the life of the country.
The law, as you know, says you must ask for an extension.
Well, we've been very clear that we're going to comply with the law. All governments support the rule of law and do that. But we're not going to speculate on how we're going to respond.
Well, let's not go round in circles on that one because it's been well trodden. We know what the law is and we know what you're saying. The Prime Minister has been dogged all day, as have all your colleagues, by the questions around the allegations against him. Who do you believe? Boris Johnson, who says he didn't grope Charlotte Edwards at a lunch, or this journalist, Charlotte Edwards, who has been supported by Matt Hancock, who says he absolutely trusts what she says, Amber Rudd and others?
Well, I don't think that's a very appropriate question to ask, really, because neither you nor I know what happened on that occasion. I'm not going to get into the business of doubting one individual or another when we don't know what the facts of the matter are. All I know is that this lady's made a very serious allegation. I don't know her, and I'm not going to question her integrity. I have seen the statement from the Prime Minister, and he could not have been clearer that in his mind this didn't occur.
Do you believe the Prime Minister?
Well, I know the Prime Minister. I trust him as an individual, and so I think we have to go on that. Of course,
so you understand you can't believe them both? Well, one of them has to be telling the truth and one of them must be lying.
The point I'm making,
the journalist
and I think you should respect this...
Well, hang on, let me just finish the question. Nobody can ever say Charlotte Edwards has ever lied about anything. We know that Boris Johnson has been sacked from the Conservative shadow cabinet for lying about his sexual behaviour. So why do you believe the Prime Minister rather than this journalist?
I don't believe in any of us questioning other people's motives or statements. Well, we don't know what happened on that occasion. It may be that we never know, or perhaps facts will emerge that support one side or another.
On the other matter, there are investigations.
The PM has been very clear on this, and I think we have to take it from there.
On the other matter, the question of whether there was an inappropriate benefit derided for a friend of the Prime Minister's, and he didn't declare that relationship when he was Mayor of London. There are 4 different investigations. If he is found against, can he survive as Prime Minister?
Well, the first allegation, as I understand it, was that a grant from a government department was inappropriately made to this lady's business. that grant was made by a government department which Boris Johnson, as Mayor of London, had no control over. It was not a ministerial decision, he wasn't a minister, and it was made by civil servants following criteria. So there's absolutely no suggestion of impropriety there. I think on this account, you do have to question the political motives of people bringing forward these allegations at this particular moment in time. But of course, you know, I will, like you, follow the matter, and if evidence emerges, then that might change my opinion. But from what I've seen today, there is no suggestion of impropriety by the Prime Minister whatsoever.
Robert Jenrick, thank you very much indeed
Thank
for
you.
joining us.